Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast, where entrepreneurs come to learn from real buyers, sellers, and industry experts on the lesser-known growth opportunities to build their online business empires. We'll uncover tactics veteran online business entrepreneurs have used to build, buy, flip, and sell their way towards personal wealth. Sit back, grab a coffee, and get ready to uncover hidden growth secrets. The Opportunity Podcast starts now.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Opportunity. I'm your host, Greg Elfrank, here, head of marketing over at Empire Flippers, where we help you buy and sell businesses every day of the week. And today I am bringing a cool buddy of mine, Mina Elias, on here of Trivium Group, also of MMA Nutrition. He is a seven-figure FBA seller, and he has built a pretty cool agency where in about a year, he went from 3 people to 30, which is a lot of employees for a brand new company. In this episode, Mina shares a lot of his journey from him going from basically a chemistry engineer to becoming a wildly successful e-commerce agency owner. And we talk quite heavily about Amazon DSP in this episode, as well as some team structuring. So if you are looking to get into Amazon DSP, this is the show for you. We talk a little bit about the risks involved, what you can expect, and what you can hope to achieve with DSP, because a lot of the expectations that people have going into it don't make sense with the reality of it. So Mina did a really, really good job on explaining this. And we also dived a bit into team structure. So if you are looking to build your own team for your Amazon FBA business or whatever business you're building, definitely listen to the end because Mina gives some pretty good tips on how to do that. All right, I've talked long enough here. So let's dive into this episode and I will see you on the other side. Mina, welcome to the show. Welcome to the Opportunity Podcast. Tell us a little bit about yourself, man, and where you are in the world right now.
I am in sunny Los Angeles, California, the number 1 city in the world. You know, the number 2 is Dubai. Those are my favorite 2 places in the world. But yeah, man, everything is good. Life is good. I just came back from the gym, had arms day. It was a good day. And FYI, not every day is arms day for me, just for the people that are curious about that.
Curious about your guns. Are they so big? You must do it every day.
No, but it's good, man. Everything is good. You know, it is the summer. So I'm doing a lot of intentionally not being as available as usual. Kind of shows me the holes in my business. And so I don't know if, you want me to give a quick background, but basically my background's in chemical engineering and chemistry. I came to America in 2011 to study. I graduated top of my class, got bachelor's and master's, worked up the corporate ladder, same old boring stuff. Hated corporate because I felt like people kept telling me what to do. I never was compensated based on my performance. I didn't get enough recognition. It wasn't for me. And I hated the being tied to a location and you have to show up to the office every single day, even when there's a snowstorm. And I'm like, this is not for me. So after changing jobs a few times, I realized I'm kind of, who's that said you would be a fool to, try the same thing again and think you're going to get a different outcome. And so I think, I don't know, Albert Einstein, so one of those people. But basically I was like, I'm a fool if I think I should get another engineering job and then, think that I'm going to have a better life. And it wasn't that I didn't achieve everything I wanted. I was always a top performer, right? And so I worked up the corporate ladder. And the last thing I remember was one day my last boss calls me in and she's like, hey, I want to talk to you about something. She was ready to retire. And she's like, what do you feel about, kind of taking over my role in the business in the next 5 to 10 years or whatever. And of course, the first thing is I would absolutely love that. But then driving home, I'm like, dude, if I do this, what's the next 30 years of my life going to look like? Is it still waking up at 4:30 in the morning, going to work and all of this stuff and working 9 hours, commuting 1.5 hours every single, this is not a life that I want. And so that was kind of the big thing. I decided to start a supplement company. And, I'm an MMA fighter since 2013. I knew I could formulate incredible supplements and I really needed an electrolyte powder that didn't have sugar, that had high sodium, because sodium is the performance, if you guys are working out, anything endurance or competitive, and you haven't tried taking a lot of sodium, pickle juice, salting your food, a lot of water, that kind of stuff, try it for like a couple weeks and hit me up, because like your performance drastically improves. Right now I'm actually drinking about 1,000 milligrams of sodium in my like morning with vitamin C and glutamine. That's like my morning cocktail. But anyways, I created the supplement brand just as a thing. I'm like, maybe it's something that can turn into a business. And after like failing at trying to sell it like physically and in person, I said, let me just get it on Amazon. That's where I buy all of my supplements. And so I went down the rabbit hole, watched every single YouTube video on the planet about Amazon, joined every single group, read every single article. I don't know if Empire Flippers was posting stuff about Amazon back then, but anything that was on the internet, I was consuming, and I figured some stuff out. So I found a manufacturer. After messaging, I think 100 different manufacturers, all of them said 1,000 minimum order quantity, all this stuff. And I'm like, bro, 1,000? That's like 5 grand. That's like $5,000 investment. Like, think about it. I was an engineer living paycheck to paycheck because I didn't know shit about money. And I'm like, $5,000, like, hell no. Like, what about $500? And so I ran into this one manufacturer where I was honestly planning of buying all of the raw ingredients from Amazon, from bulksupplements.com. And I was going to pay my roommate $14 an hour to mix them up at home
Oh,
and bag them. And I swear to
the
God,
ultimate bootstrapping.
that was the plan. He's going to do it. He's an MMA fighter too, was working at Costco. And so he was going to do it. I was going to be at work, 14 an hour. Like, we're going to make it work, right? I was going to have him do a couple hundred. We always have this joke, right? Where I told him like, hey, Eddie, I want to pay you $15 an hour, but you can only work 2 hours. Because I didn't have any money, man. I was like, dude, I can't pay people like this. So anyways, I was able to find a manufacturer. I got 100 units, sent it to Amazon. The first 60 units blew up in transport because I didn't ever inspect the bags, which is my first biggest mistake. But anyways, I figured things out, and eventually like I understood, okay, PPC is helping, getting reviews is helping. And I just was very obsessive. And I think 4 or 5 months in, I went to a conference in New York City. I, balled out $300 on an early bird ticket, which is kind of the most I've ever paid for a ticket in my life. And, I took a bet on myself. I went to this conference with like a mission and an agenda to like suck the knowledge out of everyone's brain. And I went there, I said, like, these people have answers. I need their answers. And I left that place with 2 things: a notebook with 16 hours worth of consultations that I did there, right? By literally like interviewing every single person. Like, at the end of the day, I was like, there's nothing else I can get from these people. Like, their brains are like, I bled them dry. And then the second thing was I realized that none of these 7 and 8 figure brands and founders and sellers are better than me. Like, they don't have anything special. They didn't come from money. They didn't have funding. They are not smarter than me. Like, technically, I am smarter on a technical standpoint.
I have the chemistry degree to prove it. I have a lot of friends who flunked that class in college.
Yeah, exactly. So I just left there and I'm like, dude, I can do this. And, 6 months from the day that I got on Amazon, I was fired from my company. They, I think, figured out that I was like just not putting in work, and I was just putting in the bare minimum, just projects were moving along, but like there was that overachiever Mina was gone. And so I was fired, and I was like, dude, like, what should I do at this point? And I'm like, I'm just going to go all in. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? 6 months later, I just get another engineering job, right? Back to where we are today, but at least I tried something. And so I packed my life, put it in a car, parked my car at church, and then went back to Egypt, where I'm from, for 4 months so I can save on my expenses. Went from like $3,000 to $500 a month. And so I was able to reinvest every single dollar back into the business. And then after those 4 months in Egypt, I was doing 10 grand a month in profits out of the business and moved to LA. And then, the rest is kind of history. I grew the brand, became famous for PPC by sharing all of my knowledge and experience in podcasts and the Facebook groups and all of that stuff, and podcasts like this. And I was very, very tactical, like, come to me and I can show you the shit. No, I was just laying it all out. And then an aggregator hits me up and they're like, we want you to train our in-house team. So I said, okay, that's cool. Here's a proposal. This is going to cost this many hours and I'll charge you by hourly. And here's my systems, procedures, all the stuff that I'll create for you. And so they said, we want to test you first on one of our brands. So they tested me on one of the brands. And 4 months later, they said, we were testing 6 other agencies and you won. You beat them all out. You have the proposal. Go ahead, do your work. I did my work. And then I'm like, dude, holy shit. Like, I'm better than 6 other agencies and aggregator who raised 300 million hired. So I must be really good. I was good at supplements, but I'm really good at PPC. And so I said, maybe I'm just doing the world a disservice by like not offering help, because people always ask me. And I said, nah, I only do PPC for myself. But I built the agency. In a year, we grew from 3 people to 35 people now. And, it's been an incredible ride.
That's awesome, man. I think that is an amazing story. I had Yana Krakagon from YOT on the last episode. I'm not sure when hers coming out in relation to this one, but she had a very similar story with her boss, like just kind of letting her go. And I joked about there must be a statistic out there of bad bosses creating great entrepreneurs.
Dude,
But
100%.
I also wanted to comment on the fact that you're from Egypt, like you mentioned, and what you did, you went back to Egypt to lower the cost. Like right there, I think that is awesome. Like I talk to people, my non-entrepreneur friends, but you probably know this. Like our friends are not in business; they kind of have a different mindset about things, and like, oh, there's just like no way I could ever do it. They're like, my expenses are too high or whatever. Like, well, move. Like, well, I can't do that. Like, why not? What's keeping you here? Like, if you want to do this, just go to a place where it's cheaper. Like, it doesn't have to be Egypt, but rural Missouri is definitely a lot less expensive than San Francisco, for example. So I think that's cool. You did that. Also, I love how you were just laying out the knowledge to grow Trivium. And it sounds like that wasn't even initially part of the plan. You just wanted to share the knowledge. But the one last thing I want to touch on before we go into the next question is the conferences. So, like a lot of people, and this is more for the audience because I think you already know this, Mina, you probably agree based on your story. A lot of people wonder, like, should I or should I not go to one of these? And in my experience, I've been to, I don't know, probably at least 30 business conferences over the years. I've spoken at a lot of them. Like, it's always worth it. Like, even if you don't go to the speech, just the networking of talking to peers and like-minded people. Would you say that the entrepreneurial journey is, somewhat lonely, and that conference kind of gave you the belief, like, holy shit, these other people are doing it. Like, absolutely, I can do it. Like, it felt like from your story, you got kind of that fuel from the conference.
Yeah, and I mean, let's do like a quick, like a number calculation, like a financial analysis, right? For me, the average good consultant, well, first of all, the number one hack that I figured out in my life now as a business is using consultants will shortcut time. So I can go learn how to do Google Ads in 3 months. But I bet you in 1 hour consultations with a Google Ads expert, I can be just as good. So that's the time hack of using consultants. And we've been using them in the business. We've grown incredibly fast because we have like a whole suite of consultants, for HR, for hiring, for accounting, for finance, for, building businesses, operations, all of this stuff, sales. And so that's the biggest hack. So now that you know that, what's the average consultant hourly rate? Anywhere between $150 to $1,000, right? So let's say on average $200. So we can be like very conservative. Now you're paying like Sell and Scale, for example, is an $800 ticket. So you're going to be there from September 19th to the 21st. There is about, let's say, 12 hours a day of where you can interact with people. So it's 36 hours. In those 36 hours, let's say half of them you spend talking to people like me who are going to be there, who have nothing better to do than to talk back to you about your business. So that's 18 hours.
Corner you at the conference. Please talk to me, Mina.
No, but I'm serious. I tell everyone this. I'm going to be speaking at the conference. I'm going to have a booth. What do you think I'm going to do? Like, there is nothing to do. Like, I'm going there to add value. Like, that's how I get business. I add so much value to the people that I'm like, you go do it yourself. And then when you go do it yourself, you realize I'd rather just pay someone who's like 10,000 times more efficient than me to do it instead of me trying to do it myself. But if you did want to do it yourself, I would show you exactly how. And so let's say out of those 36 hours, 18 of them are spent on consulting. 18 times 200, you do the number, that's 3,600, right? And so $3,600, very, very, very conservatively, you get for $800, right? Am I doing this math correctly? Is
I am not the math
18
guy. I'm
hours?
a creative artist, Mina. You're challenging my mathematically challenged brain right now. I do not have a chemistry degree.
Yeah, no worries. But you get the gist of this, right? You get the
I
gist.
do,
And it's
yeah.
basically, you go to a conference, you get so much, so much, so much, so much value from the people there. If it's the right conference, if you go to a conference that you're not 100% sure about, and then, the people there are like kind of not really high level and everyone's trying to pitch you and give you like half information. But, if you go to any conference that I'm at, you can come to me, literally bring your computer, spend an hour talking, you'll get everything that you need. And that's only one piece of the conference. The other piece is connecting with all these people that are the same as you or better than you, and feeling like you're not alone on the journey, and also feeling like all of these people that are better than you don't have. I mean, if you just heard my story, like, what did I have that other people don't have? Like, I mean, I don't think my like engineering work really helped my PPC agency that much, right? I mean, obviously there's always transferable skills, but I didn't have any money. I was dead broke when I started the whole journey. I was even worse than dead broke. I was actually about $85,000 in student debt when I started my
Oof.
entrepreneurial
That's a big
journey.
one.
$85,000.
Let's get into some of the nuts and bolts here. So you've grown MMA nutrition over the years into what? Like, would you say is a multiple seven-figure brand, or where's MMA nutrition sitting at right now?
It's over $1 million. It's not multiple seven figures. Right as we hit the $1 million mark, I started doing other things, and that was the biggest mistake that I made was thinking, that saying that millionaires have seven income sources and like all of this stuff,
Right.
and thinking
Yeah,
that
the classic engine of distraction for entrepreneurs.
exactly. And I ended up like starting a second brand and I did a course and I tried to I spread myself too thin. Instead of putting 100% all in all of my energy on just MMA nutrition, I started spreading it in. As I spread my energy, I mean, the reflection was on the business. Numbers started to go down. Competitors were coming into the marketplace. I wasn't innovating. I wasn't finding new ways. I wasn't like marketing well. I wasn't trying to figure out Amazon like more and more. And so I kind of just let it be for a very long time. And, that hurt me. That ended up being what made MMA nutrition never really grow to what it could have been. And I think also a big portion of it is where I was in my life. And I kind of, no one really tells you this, but any brand, any like physical products brand is a very cash flow intensive business. So I was taking about $6,000 as a salary every month. And the business needed more, more, more. It kept needing more money to grow. And I felt like, I'm like, okay, like I'm not pulling that much out of the business. And it seems like I need to pull less out. And so I was finding like different ways so I can live a better life without having to sacrifice. And so that's kind of really what led me down that like distracted path. And yeah, MMA and nutrition is still a seven-figure brand, but I wouldn't say it's really on a really good growth trajectory. The agency, on the other hand, is a completely different story. But when I did start the agency, I was starting it and I kept remembering all of the mistakes. And I had a friend who kept saying, listen, man, if you're going to do something and you really want it to grow, you have to be all in. There's not a single entrepreneur that is very successful that if you follow their life story, started three companies at the same time. They maybe started one company, grew it like insanely, had a full team, they had, more time. And then they're like, oh, let's start the second thing using all of the resources that I have and all the cash that I have and all of these things. And that's what I didn't realize. And so with the agency, I'm like, okay, I am going 100% all in, fully dedicating every waking moment to it. And results show that this is what's happening.
So one thing before we get into the agency, because that's what I really want to talk to you about as well with the Amazon DSP. But I must say, I'm very happy to hear you are about to make an exit with MMA Nutrition with us from the sounds of it.
Oh, that's no. I'm making an
Plot
exit with
twist.
a
Suddenly, this is a sales call. I'm pitching you right now, man.
No,
I'm kidding,
I
I'm kidding.
actually I'm listed on Empire Flippers for the second brand, the one of the distraction brands. Yeah.
We'll get both. You have marked my words. That's awesome. I agree wholeheartedly with you. I think the focus issue is actually a major issue with entrepreneurs. I think part of it is because entrepreneurs in general, like I'm a very creative person and entrepreneurs tend to be very creative. And when you're creative and you start getting good at stuff, you start seeing like all these different opportunities. And it's just like, I want to do them all. And it can be really hard to say no. So that maniacal focus, I think the ability to say no is one of the more powerful things that entrepreneurs can do, in my opinion, to have that maniacal focus. So let's switch gears to Trivium, because that is something that has been on my radar for a while. It's something, I see you on LinkedIn. By the way, anyone listening to this should definitely go follow Mina on LinkedIn. He shares a lot of cool stuff on there. But I've enjoyed watching it grow. Also, you partnered with CXL to create a course on that, which I think is cool. I think CXL has some of the better courses on there, marketing in general. So let me ask you, since you're such a big advocate for Amazon DSP, for those who are unaware, can you talk a bit about what Amazon DSP is and like not just what it is, but also how it might be different than like, say, the vanilla Amazon PPC that people are more familiar with?
Yeah, I would love talking about that because there's a lot of misconceptions about this. So Amazon DSP is Amazon's demand side platform. What Amazon does is basically on one side, it gathers customer data. So it has all of the data of the people who have visited their products and purchased products and all this stuff. They also have their credit card data. So they actually have access to credit card data and all other data that they have access to. This is all Amazon's data. And then they pair that with places where they can advertise, the supply side, which is that you can advertise on Amazon and on IMDb, which is also owned by Amazon. You can advertise off of Amazon on all of Amazon's third-party publisher sites. So Amazon has a ton of inventory for advertising on and off Amazon. And so what they do is they combine the two, and that's basically Amazon DSP, is where you can use first party data and audience information and overlay it to places to advertise, like Amazon's mobile web app, for example. And then you really get results from there. And so the difference between PPC and DSP is PPC is simply you're capturing demand. So people are coming to Amazon, they're looking for something, you show your product up there. That's kind of the end of the journey there. So you show it, you don't have access of retargeting. There is some retargeting with sponsored display, but it's very, very rudimentary. Now, with DSP, you have access to the audiences. So you can say, okay, I want to advertise everyone who's visited my listing in the last 30 days but hasn't purchased from me or my competitors. I want to target everyone who's bought a product from me in the last year but hasn't bought again in the last 60 days or bought any of my competitors' products. So things like that. So you start getting really granular with the audiences. You can also advertise everyone if you can add a pixel on your website, and you can advertise everyone who's visited your website. So you can even do that. Amazon has that ability, which is amazing. And so using DSP is always supplementary to using PPC, because when you use PPC, you're basically capturing demand. If people have a demand for your product and they end up buying your product, that's a great sign. That means that you're doing something right. Then you can graduate to DSP. There's, for me, two main uses of DSP. Number one, the whole like loyalty, and cross-selling function. So everyone who has purchased your product in the past, you can just remind them with ads, or anyone who's purchased your product in the past, you can start upselling them with ads. And because you have that audience feature on DSP, you could do that. The second, the main function, in my opinion, of DSP is bringing new to brand. And a lot of people think like, you're just going to go on DSP and you're going to get a really good ROAS. You're not. You actually have to be willing to go down in ROAS for the sake of bringing new people into your business. And so if you have, let's say, a 4x ROAS on PPC or a 25% ACOS, you might say, okay, I'm down to go down on DSP to a 2x ROAS, but I want like a high new to brand ratio, which means you're going to go find everyone who's visited your competitor's listing but hasn't seen yours yet. Anyone who's visited complementary products hasn't seen yours yet. Anyone who isn't in the market for your product but hasn't seen yours yet. And you can target those audiences, bring them in, and then have a retargeting function in there. So the second that they click on your listing, you're immediately now retargeting them and eventually converting them, but they're new to brand. So they would have never bought your product if they didn't see those initial ads from DSP. So that's my kind of like short explanation of DSP.
Yeah. When I first learned about DSP, I think one of the misconceptions I had was Amazon DSP is just on Amazon, but that's not true, right? Like you mentioned IMDb, there's a lot of properties that Amazon owns, but I believe they also, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think this is right. I believe they also allow like independent website publishers to put DSP on their site, similar to like Google AdSense, right? So
Yes.
in a way, it is like Amazon's answer to Google's display ad network. And I like how you position PPC there, by the way, because it's very similar to Google Ads and SEO. Like it's a lot of demand capture rather than creation, right? But what you're doing with DSP is kind of going out there into the wilderness, so to speak, to bring people in, which obviously that's going to have, that's going to lower your ROAS because they're just less warmed up. Now, you were talking about retargeting. Are you retargeting on Amazon's platform with PPC, or are you talking like general retargeting across the board with that?
Again, the way that you build it is totally up to you. So we can say, okay, advertise everywhere on the top of the funnel. Like, let's do competitor targeting. So we want to target people who visited our competitors in the last 30 days, but haven't purchased from us or them or visited our product. And we can target them everywhere on Amazon, off Amazon. And then we can set our retargeting. So if anyone ever clicks on those, to only retarget them on Amazon, we could do that. Or we could retarget them off Amazon too. So our ad could follow them into whatever websites they're on, like any other, publisher sites on the internet. We could do that too. So totally, it's up to you how you set, I guess, the inventory. You can choose which inventory you want to advertise on.
So with Amazon DSP, I don't know if they still have this, but I seem to recall when I was checking it out, and this was, a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, some things may have changed, but is there minimum criteria for the seller to access the DSP platform? Like, do they have to be spending a minimum amount? Is there like a special way for them to get a seat, or is it more self-serve, anyone can get in?
No one can get a seat. Even agencies struggle to get a seat. So only agencies offer this. We got a seat by basically making, showing them that we have a lot of clients that are willing to spend a lot of money every single month on their platform. So we had to really negotiate, and a lot of agencies get rejected. We were lucky, we got approved. So we have a seat. And then any client or any brand that wants to work with us, like they can't do anything. They literally just have to hire us to do it. And the way that it works is they literally have to wire us the money, and then we use that money in running ads, and then we wire the money to Amazon as sort of like we
Oh,
pay
wow.
the
I didn't know
invoice.
about that part. That's pretty crazy. It seems
Yeah.
kind of clunky.
It is very clunky. It is very, very, very clunky. And basically, we're on the hook for everyone's ad dollars. So
Right.
let's say I start with a client and they're like, okay, yeah, let's spend 50 grand a month. And, half like 2 weeks in, they're like, hey, by the way, like they didn't pay. And they're like, yeah, no, we've decided to like not do DSP anymore. I'd have to pay Amazon 25 grand out of my own money.
Oh my God. What a weird situation Amazon's creating of this like circle of trust between the agency and the client there. I mean, either one could kind of screw them over. Like, if I'm the Amazon FBA guy, like, I want to spend 50K, like, all right, great, wire me 50K. Like, that's not the way PPC works. And then vice versa, you're like, come on, the due date of this invoice is coming up. I really don't want to pay.
Literally. And so, we've been doing our best to like manage that. But if you're wondering, okay, what brands should be use DSP? There's no minimum spend. There used to be this rumor that there's literally no minimum requirements at all. I can literally spend $500 tomorrow on DSP and call it a day if I want to. The only reason there's minimum spends because agencies want their money. So agencies will tell you like, oh, like our minimum spend, we do a 10% fee of whatever your DSP ads are. And the minimum you can spend is 30 grand. So they get 3 grand basically. I'm against percentage of spend because as MMA nutrition, I would never give anyone a percentage of spend because you could just blow the spend. That's so easy.
Right.
You put the number in and you're like, oh, well, it's Amazon's fault. Your ROAS sucks. Definitely not our fault. So
Hey, the money is spent. I did what I
yeah.
told you I was going to do, right? And then that is the easier model if you're not a good marketer, right?
Exactly. Trust me, we know one thing about Amazon is they will spend your money
Oh,
100%.
for
They will
sure.
spend all of your money. And then the second thing is, so now that you understand that and like they're taking a percentage of the spend and so they want to make it worth their while, they'll like do that minimum. But, for us, we do flat fee. So you just pay us, a certain flat rate to do it. If you decide to spend $5,000 and you get like a 3x ROAS, you may be able to like, break even on the cost of running the ad. So that's kind of what you have to keep in mind. A few things in terms of like how small of a brand can you be before you run. The first thing is we need 1,000 like Amazon accounts, per time period to build the audience. So if you say, Mina, I want to do retargeting of everyone who visited my listing in the last 30 days, there needs to be 1,000 people who visited your listing in the last 30 days. If it's less than that, or if it's like right at the 1,000, the audience won't get like developed. Like it'll be too few people to build the audience. And so just make sure that any audience that you're thinking about has like at least 1,000 people in that time frame that you're going to target in. The second thing is you need to have a really good conversion rate and ROAS on PPC because when you go to DSP, it's not going to get any better. It might look amazing in the first, let's say like 30, 60 days when you do loyalty. Let's say you're a supplement brand and you do like this loyalty campaign. We've done this and the first like 60 days, we have like a 10x ROAS. And it's basically people who purchased from us in the past. And now we're just reminding them like, hey, repurchase. But then once that pool dries up and all those people like whoever we hit like already repurchased, then it like really becomes like, okay, that like well has dried up. And your goal should be to bring new to brand. And so you just have to be very patient. You have to have good metrics on the PPC side and be willing to invest on the DSP like 2-3 months at least before you start seeing anything reasonable. And then beyond that, you have a lower return on ad spend. You're bringing new people to the business, new people to the brand, and hopefully growing your entire like customer database.
You may have mentioned in there, but is there any like specific kind of ROAS or margin percentage on the PPC that you try to aim for before migrating some over to DSP? Like, is there a general rule of thumb?
No, there's really no general rule of thumb because it also depends on your like profit margins. But I would say like if you're doing at least, 8K a month in profits, then consider doing DSP, 6 to 8 grand a month in profits, because then you can sink in some money break even on a couple months on the DSP, pay the agency fees. And then from there, like even if you start making more profit, at least to cover the amount, like, anticipate anywhere between 2 to 3 grand as an agency fee. That 2 to 3 grand, like, can you make that much in profit? Like, let's say you use 10 grand in DSP spend and you generate 25 grand in total. From that 10 to 25, what's the profit? 25 minus 10 minus your cost of goods and all that stuff. If you're left with like 5K in profits, that's amazing. You can pay the agency and you have a little bit left. So that's how I would run the numbers.
Gotcha. And when you first started a DSP campaign, is there kind of like a warm up time in the sense that you just know going in the first campaign is going to be most likely unprofitable or break even? Break even would be a great sign. And then there's that iteration process like there is with, other ad platforms, say like Facebook ads, et cetera. Is that similar with DSP? Like there's a little bit of a timeline where you need to tweak the campaign?
Yeah, it's 2 to 3 months.
2 to 3 months.
Yeah, and the worst part is that it's a 14-day attribution. I mean, in the first month, you basically only have 2 weeks of data ish, like not really the best 2 weeks of data. So it
Interesting.
takes about 2 to 3 months for us to like really have a good grasp of the data and understand like how the data is behaving. And then usually like after the third month, you're able to make enough optimizations that you can see, okay, these placements worked, this type of creative worked, this, audience worked, and, you can tweak it, adjust budgets and all that stuff so you can start hitting the goals that you want.
Is that attribution like certain type, like last click, first click, anything like that?
I believe it's last click attribution or like last view, I guess, because it's DSP. It's like based on views. And I think, yeah, like someone could have seen you 14 days ago and then purchased after 14 days and you would get the credit.
And so on the 14-day attribution, let's say we're at the end of month one, I could only see like the first 14 days of that month.
Accurately is what I'm saying.
I see.
The second 2 weeks could look very bad. And then you wait a few weeks. Like right now, we're in August. I could look at the July numbers and they could look really bad. And then in September, I could look at July numbers and they look really good.
So switching gears here a little bit, I think we're setting like some proper expectations. Obviously, DSP has huge benefits for people. We already kind of mentioned the best time to start doing this is when your PPC is going good and you have some extra cash flow to really start scaling up the brand. Outside this, like the first 3 months of woe of like getting the tweaking right
Mhm.
and everything, is there any other risks with DSP that sellers should be aware of before they, hop in and take a grasp at the opportunity here?
No, if you have a good conversion rate, I think there's no risk. I think you should totally go for it. The only other risk is if you haven't maxed out your PPC, your ad dollars are way better being put into PPC before you put into DSP. I think because again, it's like warm audiences coming to you. They're like, I'm looking to buy your microphone. Show me that you have the best one, and I'll pay money immediately. So that's why I prefer PPC. There's no other risks, no.
Maybe there's an Amazon seller out there that is still relatively new to the ecosystem. What would be a good sign for them to know that they've maxed out their PPC? Like, is there any signs that like, hey, I've done everything here? Is it very clear, or what would you say in that regard?
If they try spending more money and they consistently see that they're spending more money, they're only getting incremental growth in sessions and their revenue is not increasing that much, that's when I would say you're starting to plateau a little bit.
Gotcha.
When the issue is traffic, not conversion.
Yeah. Okay. Once you start seeing that incremental traffic, maybe you bring down some of your PPC costs. You start investing that difference, plus, obviously some more, most likely into DSP is when you'd recommend it.
Exactly. And then hopefully, if you build the funnel segments correctly, which the way that we build it is the bottom is the loyalty. So people who purchased but haven't recently. Above it is retargeting, everyone who's viewed but hasn't purchased from us or our competitors. Above it is competitor targeting, everyone who viewed our competitors but haven't viewed us or purchased from anyone. And then above that is complementary products, same as competitor, but complementary products. And then in market, again, everyone who's in the market for, let's say, my electrolyte supplement, but hasn't purchased from me or my competitors. Then we can also do some demographic. And basically, that's how I would build the funnel. And you start by setting up the loyalty or retargeting, and that captures everything. And then you need at least one mid upper funnel segment. So competitor or complementary or in market, one of those three. And then you just continue to build those funnel segments and you can control the budget that you give. So if you give like a 70% of your budget to the retargeting and 30% to the upper funnel, then you might just not have enough new people coming in for you to retarget. But if you maybe do 70% on the upper funnel and 30% on the retargeting and loyalty, then you're getting a lot of new people. And maybe also you could get to a point where you're not even retargeting enough. And so you tweak those percentages until the amount of new people coming in and the amount of new people that are being retargeted is good enough, and your percentage of new to brand is high. So it's like above 50%. So you know that all of these sales that are coming in, more than 50% of them have never seen you. And so that's good. And then a year down the line, your loyalty will kick in and bring them back.
Gotcha. And with all this, with the DSP and the PPC traffic that you're running simultaneously here, does that affect the actual, like, have you seen it affect the organic rankings as well?
No, we haven't really seen any effect on organic.
Really? That's
Yeah.
intriguing. So I'm curious on your thoughts on this, because this is a bit of a thing I've seen lately in the industry. I haven't seen like any data report on this or whatever. I just always kind of assumed it was true. And maybe this is different than DSP, but I see a lot of people promoting, external traffic, like say a Facebook ad to your Amazon product listing, and people saying like that order velocity that you're getting from that external Amazon traffic can actually increase your organic ranking. Do you agree with that, or have you not seen that really?
I'm sure that there's a certain like factor that Amazon takes into account of your external traffic sales velocity. What I've seen actually, now that you bring that up, but this is like not related to DSP, this is related to influencer marketing. But I've had like clients who came on and are really good on like the influencer side and the email push and that kind of stuff. And when they've pushed a lot of traffic from influencers into the Amazon listing with a direct link. So not even like no keywords, nothing, just straight up direct link. And then obviously people are looking for them by their brand name. We've seen their organic rank all go up.
Intriguing. So
Yeah, just across a lot of keywords.
yeah, that's interesting. I've always assumed that some of this paid advertising creates it through sales velocity, but perhaps it's more of the organic mentioning. I mean, if someone's typing in your brand over and over again too into Amazon, that must send a pretty, heavy signal to them like, oh, hey, people are really interested in MMA nutrition for this certain type of supplement, right?
That's honestly what I can like guess. No one really knows what's happening behind the
The
Amazon
black
closed
box,
doors.
pieces of black
Yeah.
box.
But yeah, what I am seeing is basically what you're saying. It is when we see all of those external signals, affiliates like sending traffic to the Amazon listing through their affiliate link, things like that. We've really seen that like improve. So let's say you're doing 15 grand a month on PPC. I would definitely experiment with taking like 3 grand out and going to however many YouTubers you can, maybe like 10 YouTubers, give them $300 each and have them create a YouTube video, like reviewing your product, talking about your product, comparing your product with others' products and saying that yours is the best, and give them like an Amazon affiliate link. Because we've seen that really move the needle and it improves organic rank, and it's unexplainable other than maybe Amazon says this is worth seeing how they perform when you increase the rank, sort of thing. So as far as we know, organic rank is affected by the number of conversions you have on a keyword. And so if someone types in electrolyte powder, finds 10 products, the one that is getting the most conversions, you should be the number one. But like what we've seen is you can also get that rank higher if people are directly coming to you externally and buying your product or through Amazon affiliate links. My only guess would be is Amazon saying, okay, let's see, like when we have them on position 15, they're making 30 sales a day, but clearly a lot of people like them. What if we put them in position 10 and you move up to position 10 and you start making more sales? Then Amazon's like, okay, that was a good move to bring them up. But that's kind of obviously my guess, like I'm
Let's go to
speculating.
8. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think that is right. I want to get into, kind of how you built your team. But before we do that, what are some of the success stories you've seen, maybe is with your clients or with MMA Nutrition itself by using DSP? Like, have you seen explosive growth? You mentioned, obviously lower ROAS, but overall for the business, like what are some of the success stories you've seen?
Yeah, nothing explosive, but I've seen we have a supplement brand that we started running DSP for about 6, 7 months ago, and they've grown 30% in that 6 or 7 months. And they're a $12 million brand. And so
Wow.
30% is a
That's a
significant
big,
growth.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
big one for them. That's awesome. So I want to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty on Trivium itself and maybe a little MMA on nutrition. Do you have employees at both companies that are working for both companies, or do you have that kind of separate?
No, so no one now works for MMA Nutrition anymore. Everyone's moved over to Trivium, and MMA Nutrition is just a client, like a full service client.
By the way, I like that style of doing it that way. I've often told my agency owner friends like they're always so busy. They always wanted to build their own brand. Like just treat your brand like a client and send them through your agency system. Like otherwise you're never going to do this. Like another topic.
It's so true. And the thing that I like about that is the best thing about MMA Nutrition is it's the best sandbox because I could literally do anything. And if it breaks, like it's my money. And then everything stays within the agency, like I guess education. And so if I say, guys, like we're gonna try taking, the $3,000 that we're spending on this product, the mango pineapple, on ads, we're gonna stop ads and we're gonna try to do these YouTube videos. We'll see what happens. And so we tested, it works, and then it's part of the agency now. So we can say, okay guys, like create this case study and offer it to everyone, say like we can do this if you guys want to test it, sort of thing. So it really, the brand benefits the clients, and obviously as we notice problems with clients and we improve our processes and procedures, we also goes back to the brand. And I think one of the things that I would love to, and at some point, is to get the team so good that I can then like find brands that I believe in and invest in, and do a value add where I'm like, okay, let me take a little bit of equity and significantly grow you guys and help you and guide you and eventually use Empire Flippers to sell the brand.
And buy, Mina. We can help you buy. I'm trying to make revenue off this episode. No, I think that's great, man. I think you having MMA Nutrition is kind of like your laboratory. Like in of itself, for any agency owner out there listening to this, is just a great tip. It's a great thing to have. I was talking to a B2B marketer earlier, and he was telling me like, he can't go experiment with influencers for this big enterprise SaaS like how he'd want to. So he actually has his own e-commerce business and I think a micro SaaS where, similar to you, he just experiments with it. And I think having something like that is a huge win, especially because you're not making people mad at you on a Trust Pilot for experimenting with them.
Yeah, we definitely don't want that.
Right. So let's get into a bit of your team building. So you grew from 3 employees to 30 in about a year. Is that right?
Yep, yeah. That was the fastest I've ever grown, obviously, my team, because my team was always pretty small, like 3 to 5 people. And then once the agency came, that's like where the real growth happened.
So what made you decide to grow your team so rapidly? Was it a decision of like, I just need bodies in here, we're growing so quick, I can't keep up? Or what was the mindset there?
It was the opposite. It was like, I have so much business that I can't handle, and there's so many people that are coming and asking, and the people that were in the seats were already kind of pretty backed up. So I'm like, okay, I know that if I get these people in about 3 or 4 months of training, they're going to be good. And then I can, handle like at least another 6 or 7 clients. Like the sales is what drove the hiring. And then I've been lucky to have a consultant that's helping me build an org structure as well as helping me anticipate. So when I shared with him my year goal plans, he's like, okay, cool. Like, so you're here, you want to end up here. Your growth per month looks pretty good. What are you doing on the employee side? And I'm like, oh, actually, I didn't even think about that. And he's like, yeah, like as you're growing this, you know exactly to get that revenue of growth, you need how many new clients. And if you know how many new clients, you know how many clients your employees are currently handling. You need to factor that in terms of hiring. You also need to factor in, okay, per how many employees do you need like a manager and so on. And, what are the other critical roles that you're doing now, for example, bookkeeping or recruiting or, whatever the other things are that you need to hire out for. And so that is really what helped me. A lot of it was driven by the sales. So as, we had sales coming in and leads that we couldn't service, we said, okay, we need to kind of drive the growth to manage it. So it's a balance. It's a balance of sales and employees and operations. So it's always kind of like this triangle that you're like balancing 3 sides.
Yeah, that could be a challenging thing. I mean, I was employee number 4 at EF a little over 6 years ago, and now we're at, I think, 84, 85 people, something like that. But throughout that growth, it's tough to know. Like, it's really tough to know. It's a kind of playing a strange game with the forecasting to figure out what you need. But let's break down your team a little bit here. So you mentioned sales and operations. Are those like 2 distinct departments of your team, or how are you kind of setting up org structure of your agency right now?
Yeah, so one half of my team, or like not say one half, like the right side, let's say, of my team on the right, we have the actual people that do the work. So it's kind of like it's a partial team, the agency. So it's not just like people are doing work and you have an account manager. No, like you actually get the whole team. And the team consists of a senior consultant, head of advertising, a strategist that does the dirty work, an analyst that does all the reporting and data and all of the stuff, and then an operations manager that makes sure that they run smoothly. And so that's kind of like one pod. And we know that whole team can handle like, oh, that one strategist can handle like 6 or 7. So you could probably have 3 strategists led by an operations manager and a head of advertising and assisted by an analyst. So that's one pod. And then you create another pod, and each pod generates a certain amount of revenue. And these pods are also managed by like a leader, like pod director, we call it. And so that's kind of that side of that's the fulfillment. That's where the client did the work. And then the other half of the side, I have all of like the basic functions. So I have like the recruiting, the social media, the partnerships, the sales, the accounting and bookkeeping. And that's kind of like the other side. That's like the soft side, the non, quote unquote revenue generating side. And there's one manager that manages all of those functions and then reports to me and then the senior operations person in my company. And that's kind of how it's built.
Very cool. I like the pod system. That's something we've done in particular with our sales team. We've divided our sales team up to buy side and sell side. So sales team that mainly deals with the seller and a sales team that mainly deals with the buyer kind of deal. But within those, we actually have sub pods as well, very similar to the kind of setup it sounds like you have, which I think is great. I think that's cool. In terms of hiring these people, so going from 3 to 30, that's a lot for one in 1 year, especially at the size I'm assuming you were at. So, what was key for you to hiring the right person for the job? And how did you find them? Like, what was your process for getting that right person?
So a couple of things. The way that I treat hiring, it's like a funnel. So I have sales as a funnel. I have, podcast, webinars, YouTube, I speak at conferences, we have LinkedIn, all of this stuff. That all generates a certain number of leads. They want an audit, we audit them, we get them through a sales process and so on. And so that's a funnel for sales. On the other side, I have a funnel for talent. And so we post on Facebook and LinkedIn and like these other international sites where we have like overseas employees too. And we're constantly posting, we're constantly outreaching and doing like outreach to employees and just say, hey, we have open positions if you want to apply. And at the same time, I'm creating content that attracts talent. So not just on there saying, here's a video on how to do X, Y, and Z or whatever for Amazon sellers, but I'm also here saying, creating this content saying, if you're an employer, this is how you should be treating your employees. If you're an employer, this is how to motivate your employees. Things that make employees want to come work for me. Say, damn, this is like a really nice company to work for. And so I've created a funnel on that side. And then once, people come in, there's a few things that we do. We have like a test. That test for each position, they have to open it up and it starts recording their screen, and live they have to answer this test. It's usually 5 questions or so, similar to what they're going to be doing, but it tests like their intelligence mainly. Like, are they resourceful? Can they think outside the box? Do they have critical thinking? Do they have technical skills? After that, once like they pass the test, there's a meeting with my recruiter. Then there's a meeting with my operations manager. If there's a technical side of, if it's like a PPC role, there's also a live test. So on the spot, they're like, okay, do this. And they have to do it live in front of a person, just so we really understand that this person has that technical skill that we're looking for. And then after that, there's like a final interview. It used to be with me. Now I'm having my senior operations person do it because those are like lower level kind of like positions. I only will do the final interview for like manager level positions, just because, the skill that we're growing, there's like, too many final interviews for me to do, and I don't want to like spend my whole days being a recruiter. And so that's how we vet them and we get them through all of this process. I think the best thing to do is really the test. The test, we get 1,000 applications. Half of those people don't do the test because they're like, oh, too much work. And then from the ones that do, we immediately can like kick out everyone who doesn't fit the test, and we're left with just the best people.
You and I interviewing every single person, except for the managerial thing, it made me think of this company. Forgetting the name of it, I wouldn't say if I remember it anyways, because it's not a good compliment. But the CEO, this is a big software company. Every interview, even entry level, he does the final interview. And like, there's like probably over 200, 300 people in this company. It's just like, man, that seems like such a bad use of your time. Like, why would you do that? But yes, that is great. I like this system.
I don't know if it's good or bad, because like, okay, maybe this guy like really cares about his company culture. But what I found is I would literally hop on these interviews after they've been tested 5 times, And my team would be like, yeah, we think they're good. Yeah, we think they're good. And then I would say, okay, what's your plan for the next 5 years? Like, how would you handle this situation? How would you handle that? And I would get these answers, and I'm like, honestly, I don't know, man. Let's just like try them and see what happens. Like, I guess like we'll find out one way or the other, right?
Right, yeah. I mean, that's always the other thing too, right? Like, I don't know if you do this, but we have a probation period. And I think there is a certain amount of usefulness of saying, like, hey, look, you're on board. You have 2 months or 6 months or however long you decide to prove that you can do this, right? And then we'll reevaluate from there to get you off probation, right? So there's always that thing you can probation that you can fall back onto as well. But
Exactly.
yeah, I like your system. I like thinking of hiring as a funnel. That's something we do as well. A quick question: are you always accepting resumes, or do you only open that up here and there?
Always accepting. If I find someone who's really good, doesn't matter. I mean, I made a post about this on LinkedIn, but someone reached out to me and she was really, really, really good. We didn't have a position for her. I hired her. And I had another person yesterday start. Same thing. She reached out to me, Mina, I want to work for you. She used to work for a friend who, changed his business basically. So he didn't have any use for her. And I said, how is she? He said, incredibly smart. Like, you should definitely hire her. And, I said, okay, let's bring you on. I don't know what we're going to have you do, but we'll figure it out. And so I'm always open, always accepting, because it's not like when I want talent that the amazing talent's going to be there. It could be, comes to me, it's 3 months premature. We make it work.
That reminds me a bit of when I first got hired at EF. I remember the first like week or two, we were working in this Airbnb, and the guy who got hired with me, we got hired for the same position, but they were going to bring him into a different position because I got hired technically for the content writer position. And we were in training, and I think it was Justin, our CMO. He was like, "Well, kind of know what Greg's going to do, but I don't really know what we're going to do with you. We got to figure that out." But I just wanted to hire you. You had all these skills I think we could use. So it's
Exactly.
almost like,
That's how it should be.
yeah, improv too. Let's like create a job description now that you're in the company.
That's exactly it. When you find good talent, don't let them go.
For sure. When it comes to managing your team, what kind of systems are you using? I'm assuming you're basically a remote team, right? You mentioned, people from around the world. So what's your tech stack for managing that team? What are you using?
Zoom, Slack, Notion, those are kind of the main three. Yeah, I believe that's, Loom, obviously, for screen share video recordings. Everything happens in Notion and Slack. Slack, we communicate everything. Notion is where all of our like SOPs are, our to-do lists. Every employee has a to-do list. If someone wants something done, they just go add it to the to-do list and assign it. And then any new client we get, we create a new, project in Notion, and then assign all of the different steps to the appropriate, pod, and everything just takes place.
Wow, you were the first person I met that actually uses Notion as it sounds like your project management and maybe a little bit the CRM as well.
Just project management. Our CRM is Salesforce.
Gotcha.
Again, that's just we collect the leads and then it just goes through a process. But the second that a lead ends up becoming a deal, it gets pushed into Notion, and then all of the to-dos are kind of there. It's like a checklist of things that we need to accomplish.
Yeah, it's just automated, synced with Salesforce, I assume.
Yes, and the beautiful thing also is that in Notion, anything that we need to do is linked to a page that has like a standard operating procedure on. So like no matter who you are, if you're like you need to do this step, you can always click on the step, and on that step it'll just show you exactly how to do it. Or if there's a resource required, it'll have a link to the resource. So it's very nice. I really like it. I know some people use Asana for project management, but I've just found Notion to be so much more robust.
Yeah, Notion like is probably the most flexible and adaptable CRM. I think the thing that trips people up, it certainly tripped me up because I use Notion personally every now and then. We use Monday for our project management and marketing at EF, but I think the thing that might trip people up a lot is like it's so free form, it can be pretty intimidating if you don't know what you're
Yeah,
doing at
I think you
first.
should hire a specialist.
Is that what you did with Notion? Did you hire a specialist?
Yeah, we hired an expert, like someone who has already built all of this stuff for many companies that do project management and agency work. And we brought him in. We said, this is the vision that we have. And he made it into reality, very organized, very structured. Everything is connected, built all of our templates and everything. And so once we had the framework, I think building it is 10,000 times harder than using it. So once you build it, then using it is super easy because you're just using it. And so if you're stuck and you're like, oh, I'd rather use Asana because it's easier to build, I don't know, in the long run, I think it might hurt. My friend Jeff had like 300 employees and he kept complaining every single day about Asana. So maybe at scale it will hurt. Yeah. I would definitely hire an expert and have them do all the build.
Yeah, that is something like, for example, on Monday, I've thought about using like, say, ClickUp, just testing it out, seeing what it's like. But you get so indebted to the process that it's such a like a core tool. It's almost like you've acquired this new tech debt, right? It's like switching from HubSpot to ActiveCampaign or vice versa. Like that is a painful switch.
Very painful.
Cool, man. Let's wrap this up with some personal questions and we'll move into the rapid fire. So, knowing what you know now about Amazon, what advice would you have given yourself when you first started if you knew everything you knew today?
You're going to make a lot of mistakes, so definitely don't get discouraged. Mistakes are the fastest way to learn. Hire consultants fast and experts. Make sure that you trust who they are. Hire them very quickly, get information from them, and shortcut all of like those mistakes and errors that you're going to do. If you have the opportunity, if you're still in a 9 to 5 right now, instead of trying to make your business work and like, quote unquote, replace your income, it's a lot, in my opinion, easier and better if you go do the work that you're going to do on your Amazon brand for someone else. So maybe find like a $10 million or a $5 million company and go work there so that you can learn very quickly, implement on your business. And you might not need to quit as soon, which will give you a lot more cash to reinvest into your business if that's an opportunity. Understand that on Amazon, it's pretty simple. It's traffic and conversions. So drive as much traffic as you can through PPC, through ranking organically, through external, and then constantly optimize your listing and improve that conversion rate. Never skimp out on inspections. That will hurt you, and one negative review is never worth it. And invest in your packaging and your design early on. And if you can have a $500 or $300 design versus a $2,000 design, trust me, you'll make that $1,700 difference back in no time if you invest in your packaging and your design, because it really matters. And I wish I could go back and start with an incredibly beautiful product from the beginning.
Rather than the exploding bags. Makes for a good story.
They were not a hit with the Amazon customers.
I bet. So let's move into the rapid fire section here. So this is the high pressure zone here. So I just want to ask, are you ready for the
I'm
rapid
ready.
fire? Okay,
Born ready.
let's do it. I need to get like a soundboard in here, man. It's just like the sirens going off or something. All right, so let's do it. What are the best hidden growth opportunities in Amazon DSP?
The best hidden growth opportunities are, the loyalty, which is definitely very high ROAS and continue to bring people back. Or if you don't have you can't do the loyalty, definitely bringing new to brand, targeting competitors who are worse off than you but have never seen your product.
What tools or resources, it could be one or two, that can help entrepreneurs scale their Amazon advertising that you'd recommend?
Helium 10 has incredible insights. I would always use Helium 10. If you don't have them, you can do a lot of stuff with keyword research. And then on top of that, Data Dive. Data Dive has actually been incredible for SEO optimization, title and bullet points and backend, as well as getting keywords that we need to rank higher for organically and targeting them with PPC.
Man, Data Dive is really making waves. You're the second person to mention that. 2 for 2 on my FBA interviews.
I love it.
I follow the founder. This is a cool company.
Yeah, Brandon is a cool guy.
For sure. All right. The hardest and most important question here, my friend. What has been your funniest moment working in the Amazon FBA industry or in general, the online world?
My funniest moment. Yeah, the funniest moment has been when someone commented, left a review on my product and said that my product tastes like piss smells.
Oh, you had a poet by your product. Very cool.
Yeah, and I was like, well, okay, I don't think I could have been more insulted by this, but I guess I'll take it. That means I need to do something about my product.
Well, that depends. How many stars did they give you? Was it a 5-star review?
No,
That
it's a one
brings it in a
star.
very different context.
I don't think that person really liked piss. I think it was more an insult.
Oh, that's funny. There's some really out there Amazon reviews. Every now and then I like trolling through them just because I think it's really funny.
I have some really good ones.
Awesome, man. Well, that's a wrap. Let our audience know, like, where is the best place for them to connect with you, whether maybe they have questions about PPC, or maybe even they want to work for you, like what's the best place for them to connect with you?
Definitely. So if you want to go to the website, Trivium, TRIVIUMCO, triviumco.com. If you want a free audit, we'll give you a full free audit and a strategy on exactly how to implement and improve everything, as well as any other resources we have. We have a ton of resources that we share for free. For me, you can hit me up on Instagram at the Mina Elias. On Facebook and LinkedIn, Mina Elias. I'm very accessible. Ask me any questions, I'll answer. If you want to, come work, let me know. I'll connect you to HR and, we'll put you through the application process.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me, Greg. This was so much fun.
There you have it. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it got you inspired at all the different things that are happening in this industry. And of course, if you just want to buy a highly profitable business, you can always go to empireflippers.com/marketplace, or maybe you want to make an exit of your highly profitable business, and you could go to empireflippers.com/sell your site. I've been your host, Greg. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a review, give us a like, a follow, share it across social media. Talk to you all soon. See you on the next episode.